Hello, friend. It's good to have you back with me. Let me ask you something before we begin. Tonight's story is about someone who never really waited for that feeling to arrive. And over, before he could possibly know the answer, he said yes and stepped into it anyway. In the evenings and on weekends, he laced up boots instead, playing non-league football, the unglamorous tiers of the English game where there are no broadcast deals. Jude watched his father come home drained from a full shift, and instead of collapsing onto the sofa, head straight back out into the evening chill to play a match for the sheer love of it. Between the two of them, Mark and Denise built the exact conditions a raw talent needs in order to actually grow into something. Not far from their front door sat an unremarkable stretch of grass, the kind he'd walk past without a second glance. Jude and his brother Job turned it into something else entirely. A private, imaginary Champions League final, replayed again and again for years. 1,000 finals. On an ordinary lawn, in an ordinary village, with absolutely nobody watching. And somehow, every single one of them mattered to the boy playing them. It wasn't one of England's grand, wealthy clubs. At the time it sat in the second tier of English football, but it was close enough to home to make sense. The number 10 belonged to the creative type, the player who both scored and orchestrated goals for everyone else. A coach mentioned, almost as an aside, that he didn't have to choose just one identity. He could try to be all three at once. Jude sat with that for a moment, then did something quietly telling. He added the numbers together in his head, 4 plus 8 plus 10, and arrived at 22. He asked to wear the number 22. Nobody around him fully registered what had just happened, but it was, in its own small way, the first promise he ever made to himself. He wasn't going to settle for being one type of footballer. He intended to be all of them at once. Some afternoons, after the final bell rang, he'd head straight to the training ground without even stopping to change first. Picture it for a second. A 15-year-old walking onto a pitch where full-grown professionals were preparing for real matches, still dressed in a school blazer. A year on, at 16, he was standing on the edge of something bigger. On a Tuesday evening in August of 2019, Birmingham City faced Portsmouth in a League Cup fixture. The moment he stepped onto that pitch, he shattered a club record that had stood untouched for 49 years. A few weeks after that, he made his home debut at St. Andrews, the ground he'd known intimately, since he was a small boy watching from the stands. Early in that match against Stoke City, an injury forced the manager's hand, and he turned to the bench and called Jude's name. He struck it, the shot deflected off a defender, and it rolled softly into the net. At 16 years and 63 days old, he'd just become the youngest goal scorer in Birmingham City's history. He sprinted toward the corner flag with absolutely no idea how to celebrate. He'd never scored in front of a real crowd before, so his body simply improvised. That gesture, born entirely in that unplanned instant, would go on to follow him everywhere afterward. To Germany, to Spain, to Wembley, eventually to the World Cup itself. He couldn't have known any of that yet. He was 16, and this was only the opening page. By the summer of 2020, 17 years old now, he'd already caught the attention of Europe's biggest clubs. The most tempting offer arrived from Manchester United, one of the most recognizable football institutions on the planet. English, familiar, comfortable. 1,000 kilometers away, a different language, harsher winters, unfamiliar food. What Dortmund offered instead of comfort was something rarer, genuine trust in young players. At home, Jude talked it through with his father. Mark had been quietly tracking Dortmund's recent history with young English talent, particularly a winger named Jadon Sancho, who'd made the same leap a few years prior and flourished there. Mark didn't push his son in either direction, didn't raise his voice or lecture. Back at Birmingham, The club made a decision rarely handed to anyone so young. They retired his number 22 shirt permanently, a 17-year-old, across just 44 appearances, and the club pulled his number from circulation for good. Two roads had opened in front of him. Comfort sat closer. Growth sat further out. In a language he didn't yet speak, he chose growth, having already lost the first meeting 1-2 on English soil. To keep their European dream breathing, Dortmund needed goals against one of the strongest squads anywhere in the world. He took a touch to shift the ball onto his stronger foot and curled a finish toward the top corner. Manchester City eventually rallied to win the tie 2-1, eliminating Dortmund from the competition. Afterward, reporters cornered Manchester City's manager, Pep Guardiola, widely regarded as one of the sharpest tactical minds in the sport. Ahead of him lay a fresh set of trials. A shirt number once worn by Zinedine Zidane. A shoulder joint that stubbornly refused to heal properly. By the summer of 2023, at 19, his time at Dortmund was drawing naturally to a close. And once again, Europe's giants came calling. Once again, two roads opened before him. Madrid wasn't comfort. Madrid was relentless pressure, intensified further by the fact that Karim Benzema, one of the club's greatest ever forwards, had just departed, leaving an obvious scoring void behind him. Bellingham had already mastered a second language once, moving from English into German. Now a third language, Spanish, awaited him. He chose Real Madrid anyway. Upon arrival, the club handed him a shirt carrying real historical weight. The number 5, once worn by Zidane himself. That white shirt carries enormous weight, and the Santiago Bernabéu never stops watching closely. He was only 20 years old. In October of 2023, he made his first appearance in an El Clasico, not even on home turf, but played at Barcelona's temporary home, the Estadi Olympic Luis Companys. Deep into stoppage time, another ball dropped inside the box, and Bellingham was there again, almost inevitably, to finish it off. 2-1. Real Madrid had won, inside Barcelona's own stadium, courtesy of 2 goals from their new teenage signing, silencing the home crowd entirely. A win that night would all but seal the championship. Barcelona opened the scoring, Real Madrid equalized from the penalty spot, and the sides went in level at halftime. Then, in the 91st minute, a low ball skidded dangerously across the 6-yard box, and Bellingham threw himself at it, stretching out a leg to divert it past the goalkeeper into the far corner. 3-2. 80,000 supporters inside the Bernabéu leapt to their feet as one. A single touch from the young Englishman had all but ended Barcelona's title hopes for the season. By that point, Real Madrid had already secured both La Liga and the Spanish Super Cup that campaign. One trophy still remained, with Real Madrid facing none other than Bellingham's former club, Borussia Dortmund, the very side that had first trusted him with a genuine stage and delivered a precise pass. Vinicius needed only a single touch to finish it. 2-0. And that throughout life, there will always be people telling you certain things simply aren't possible for you, which is exactly why days like this one matter so much. Match after match, along with a persistent undercurrent of pain. Every goal you might have watched him celebrate during that stretch, every time his arms flew open wide, there was genuine physical pain hiding just beneath the surface. A long throw sailed into the box, deflecting up over Bellingham's head. Bellingham sprinted to the corner, arms outstretched, shouting 2 words. Who else? Harry Kane completed the comeback in extra time, and England advanced 2-1. Who struck it low and true. 1-1. Hope flickered back to life. His story clearly wasn't finished yet. He'd once again been among the youngest out there. And once again, even in heartbreak, he'd stepped forward rather than shrinking away. England advanced to the quarterfinal, where they met Norway in Miami on the 11th of July, 2026. A Norwegian side nobody had expected to reach this stage, led by Bellingham's old Dortmund teammate Erling Haaland, the tournament's leading scorer, fresh off a stunning upset over five-time champions Brazil. Under blistering heat past 30 degrees, sweat already soaking through jerseys before kickoff. Norway struck first in the 36th minute. Then, deep into first half stoppage time, the ball fell to Bellingham at the edge of the area. One defender closed in. He cut inside. The second half dragged on without a winner, pushing the match into extra time. 3 minutes in, substitute Morgan Rowe collected the ball from distance and drove forward. England were through to the semi-final. Then Messi stirred. In the 85th minute, he threaded a defense-splitting pass for Enzo Fernandez to finish low. 1-1. The final whistle sounded, and Bellingham dropped to his knees on the turf. Wembley, and 1966, would have to wait a little longer still. A new record for any English player at either a World Cup or European Championship, surpassing names like Gary Lineker and Harry Kane. The boy from Stourbridge now stood alongside the greatest names his country's football history had ever produced. Greatness rarely arrives through a single dramatic decision. Over and over, not unlike 1,000 imagined Champions League finals played out on an unremarkable patch of grass in a small English village, with nobody watching at all. The easy road. The harder road. Which one will you choose today? Thank you for spending this time with me. I'd genuinely love to know which moment in Jude Bellingham's story stayed with you longest. Until we meet again, breathe easy and keep walking your own harder road, one small right decision at a time.